Hey guys, welcome to Connect with Katie. I'm so glad that you can join me. I just wanted to let you know the program that I use for my awesome podcast. It's called Anchor. This program is free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. Also, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Also, you can make money with no minimum listenership. Best thing is everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the KT Talk Show. Today, I have Ryan Stanley. He is a self-leadership coach, and he has much more things to offer to you and to the community. And today, we are going to be talking about what I like to call the 3's of life. Be present, be joyful, be patient. And this came from the wonderful Ryan Stanley. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then, let's get into those 3's of life.
Perfect. Yeah, happily. And first of all, let me just share some gratitude, Katie, for you having me today. I'm super excited for it. I was looking forward to our conversation all day. So really pumped to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. So my name is Ryan Stanley. I am a life and self-leadership coach from New Jersey. I've been a certified professional coach since 2009, so just over a decade. I spent a lot of my career coaching musicians and people in the music industry, but I was also the first ever internal coach for one of the top coach training organizations in the world. So there's an organization called IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and they train people to become life coaches, business coaches, executive coaches, health coaches, or whatever. And I was trained there, but I also served as their internal coach. So I coached all of their staff. So I coached everybody from entry level up to the CEO. Last summer, I published my first book, which is called Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life. Mm-hmm. And it's, I am not like a huge reader. So I'm not like I've done personal development over my whole life, aspects of it. And I'm just not the guy who wants to sit down and read 300 pages. Mm-hmm. There are some amazing books out there that will change your life. And I am likely not going to make it through all of them, or like all of each one of them. So as a coach, I was recognizing that there are so many people out there that the common themes, to your point, these big 3's in life of patience, presence, and joy were just not being utilized, or people didn't feel like they could access them so easily. And so I wrote this book. It's a short read. You can literally read it in about 35 minutes. It's really made with 2 points in mind. The first one is that you can read through it quickly. You can get through it in a half hour, 40 minutes, and have some very clear takeaways, specific calls to action that you can utilize immediately if you're having a tough day or feeling overwhelmed. But then secondly, after that, at any given point, you can just pick it up, and it is a first aid kit. If you're having a stressful moment, you can literally open it to any page, and you will find something on there that could serve your purpose in the moment and bring you more to the now and give you some options. Yeah. So that is me in a nutshell, and what I'm doing in these current days.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for your wonderful introduction. And I think it's so awesome that you have your own book out, because for not being a reader and being able to, publish your own book and put it out there and have something that's efficient but also effective, for a lot of people, that's really awesome. So I wanted to, because I think this will be effective for our audience. And, this falls in line with what your book talks about. So what does it mean to you to be present? Or what could you tell people, if you're having a hard time being present in any given moment, right? Whether it be negative or positive, how do we go about doing that, effectively?
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, actually, so 2 points. One, let's just make it clear that it's really can be extremely powerful to build up the muscle of presence. But I just want to point out that it is a muscle. It does take practice, right? That there are, it's not something that especially if you're not used to being present, it's not something that you're necessarily going to be able to do first try all the time. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. But secondly, let me just dial it back a little bit. The prologue of the book, which speaks to all three of these points of presence, patience, and joy, talks about the fact that we are all creators. And so this is kind of a long way to answer your question. But we are all creators, right? In every given moment, we're creating something. Right now, you and I are creating two human beings recording an awesome podcast, right? When you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, you're creating a human standing who's walking to the kitchen to maybe make breakfast. We create art, we create music, we create laughter, we create friendships, we create conversations, we create businesses. We're always and in always creating. Even if you just take two pieces of bread, you put some peanut butter on one side and put some jelly on the other, you're creating a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Right.
I know it sounds obvious, but really just right. And so even when we're sleeping, we're creating a human being who's sleeping. So at any given point, we're creating something. And a lot of the time, we also create anger, and we create stress, and we create anxiety, and we create frustration. And that's not to belittle those emotions or say that they're not earned or I should say deserved or valid for the moment that you are there experiencing them. But it is just to gain some awareness that you are, in effect, creating them, right, from within. Yeah. And so knowing that, to go and now to answer your question, what does it mean to be present, right? Or how can one do that? First of all, it's getting clarity and recognizing before you can even try to do it that you have the ability to create a person who is present, right? So even the first step at any given point is to recognize that you have that ability and to ask yourself important questions like, if this is something you're interested in, how does a present person behave? Right. What does it like to feel present? And when you ask yourself these questions and you utilize the right side of your brain and get curious with it, your brain is going to try to answer it. And so that's a kind of a very first kind of pre-step, right? First, decide that it's definitely a possibility. And then secondly, ask yourself some questions around what that actually looks and feels like. So you're detaching yourself from the ability to not be present. And instead, you're really just getting curious as to what it might be like to be present. Mm-hmm. Secondly, or thirdly, I'm not sure where we are in the count, but next step, I would say, is to recognize that there really is only now. I know that sounds weird, but really that's all there ever is. It feels like there's a past and there's a future, but the past is just memories of previous nows, which, by the way, we typically change in our mind. Like our mind typically kind of makes them different from they actually were, right? Mm-hmm. I think like 60% of the time they've done studies around that we change it in some capacity. And future nows and the future is basically just nows that we're predicting typically based on the past, right? Based on what our life has been up to this moment. That's how we utilize our understanding of the future to guess what's going to come next. And a lot of the time, if we spent a lot of time in stress or anxiety or pressure or whatever, we then assume that our future is going to be the same way. And we spend more time thinking about a future that doesn't serve us than the one that does. Mm-hmm. So in those moments, be present. Create a person who is present. Recognize it. Listen, am I thinking about something that happened last week, or what someone somewhere else thinks about me, or what may or may not go wrong next week, right? Am I thinking about any of these different things, or am I here right now? And so what does it mean to be here right now? It's a great question to ask. And so that in itself can lead you to figuring it out. But a quick tool would be just what are my five senses doing right now? If there is only now, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? Can I feel the air against my face? I am here now. And when you start to do that, you are not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the past. You're not thinking about people elsewhere. You're being here now. And especially if you can take an opportunity to look outside and to recognize the beauty of nature can be a huge effect on who we are and how we show up in the now. If you have an animal, pet the animal. Just be with the animal. Be present with the animal. Give them love. Create a text to send to someone else who you love, right? You're being here now, just creating love and sharing it with someone who's important in your life. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to really be present and recognize that now is a gift. Also with that, the more you start to do that, the more it becomes a habit for yourself. And the more you start to recognize the opportunity in the now, more often, right? When you start to see a beautiful sunset, you start to recognize birds, you start to recognize laughter, just the feeling of peace, any elevated emotion of love or compassion. All these different things are ways to access the now and be grateful for it. And the last thing I'll say to that is kind of with that, gratitude is a huge piece of the now as well. when you recognize that when you wake up in the morning, there is oxygen, there is gravity, there is sunlight, also that you can exist right here, right now. What are you doing with it, right? And when we create gratitude for that and the now, the more we start to recognize it as a thing and as a way of life.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think that was a great way to say, your senses, because I mean, you think about you're touching, smelling, what you're seeing, and then it really does make you. I was just thinking about it when you were when you were saying it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that really does make you, because I'll still say that sometimes I personally struggle, if I got too much going on, I'm scheduling too much, I'm thinking about too much, I'm not in the moment, and I'm missing out on a lot of things. And then I realized that, and just sitting here now, like I said, and doing that, I was like, that's a great tool to use to be present, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's something that anybody can do.
Right? Exactly. And
just for starting, it's a great place to start.
Yeah. And there was something I was listening to yesterday, and it was just being the second thing I was going to say, the 3's of life, be joyful. So that, I think, goes back to basically having your inner child kind of come out, I think, in a sense. And maybe you can say that a little bit differently, but that's what I think of. You know what I mean? Because as children, we really are living, and I feel like we're always living in the moment as children, and if we kind of go back necessarily to that mindset, but just being happy, thinking about being, like when we build a sandcastle and then, it gets destroyed, but guess what? I'm going to go on to something else and cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's great about what you just said is and first of all, I totally agree with you. I think the inner child is a joyful place to be. And the other thing is it's going to be different for everybody, right? Everybody can find joy in different things. There's some people who are, really musically inclined. And so they might find anytime they hear music, it brings them joy. Sometimes just a memory from a prior experience, thinking of someone who we love unconditionally. Like joy is free, right? Joy is always there if we want it to be. And
100%.
There's a reason that in the book, that's why I actually put it in the order of patience, presence, and then joy, because a lot of the time it's the first two that people have the most difficult with. And then once they start to kind of master their ability to be patient or to be present, then the joy just kind of sneaks in there without any effort on their own, right? It's just kind of part of the experience of now you're here now. You're not worried about the past or the future. You don't feel like you're late or behind. You're just here. And so how would I rather be feeling? How can I create joy? What does joy feel like? And for me, it's interesting because I used to, so we're all in our own growth as part of my journey. Yeah. I've always been a relatively happy individual, right? And I do, come across as a happy person. I love being around other people. I love connecting. I like making other people happy. But the concept of like, hey, you can create joy whenever you want to, felt like it was a bit of a struggle. Like it was something like, okay, even if I'm having a bad day, like what does that even mean? And the truth of the matter is it, like anything else, is a habit. I know I touched on that with being present, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
The more you start to say, well, what would it be like if I could create joy right now? How does that feel? How does a joyful person behave? When a joyful person closes their eyes in the moment, how are they, what are their internal thoughts? What are their internal feelings? And the more you start to do this, the challenges with our life is we've lived a life and created physical habits, which are typically, that's a strong word, but are often, I'll say, not joyful, right? That we have stress, that we don't weigh the right weight, we don't have the right job, we're not in the right career, we're not as far along as we want. And so we come up with all these different reasons why life is not a blessing. And that becomes our habit. And it's like we're constantly in coping mode, right? We're coping versus creating. Mm-hmm. And so in that space, of course, you're not necessarily going to create joy because you're at the effect of life.
Yeah.
But when you start to recognize that life is happening for you and not to you.
Exactly.
In every given moment. And we create joy just for that. And we say, okay, well, if life is happening for me, how can I make it as happy and joyful as possible? Mm-hmm. When you start to build that habit up, your body will enjoy creating those chemicals that bring joy into your life. Yeah. And you start to do it more and more often. Mm-hmm. And it becomes more of a way of being. And then it's contagious as well. Other people feel it. They see it. They take it on in their own way of being.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exactly what kind of in the space that I was at, a few months ago, I was really connecting with, people like you. I mean, obviously right now, we're right here talking, and, in the positivity and the inspiration and just all these ideas, and you know what I mean? You're talking about being creative, and like, this is totally the opportunity, I think, at this point in time, that with everything going on, for us to do that, right? I think it's a perfect time for us to get more creative, because we have, there's a lot of things that are going on that kind of like don't make sense, but like, if we can take the opportunity to make sense of ourselves, I guess that's where I'm kind of going with this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that leads us to be joyful and be, all those things that you said, be present, be patient, and be creative. And
that's it. Yeah. Right. So when we start to recognize, okay, so as a creative person, like as a human being, we have a creative center, right? It comes from our heart. We're able to really come up with things. Going back to the concept earlier of, listen, as soon as I put a couple words on a piece of paper and put a sentence behind, I put a period at the end of it, I've created a sentence. Right? So I'm always creating. And once you recognize that, how can I create joy more often? I'm creating something anyway right now. I might as well start creating things and emotions and experiences that really I want them to experience. Mm-hmm. And then I want others to, really my philosophy in life is decide what you want to be and do something about it every day, and be the light you want to see, in the world at the same time. Mm-hmm. And, as long as you're doing that and you're moving forward, you are constantly creating, and you're not at the effective life, and you're not worried about what other people think, and you can live on purpose. And then by being that light that you want to see in the world, not only are you enjoying life, and letting others see you do it, but you're inspiring others to do the same, ideally.
Yeah. 100%. And that's something that I actually, and I don't even like talking about myself, but this is just something that kind of popped in my head. But I was getting a little bit more active on my Facebook page, and this girl that I didn't even think really paid attention, she just messaged me out of the blue, and she was like, I just have to let you know, she's like, you're really inspiring. She's like, you inspired me to get on the camera and do these lives. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like what? And, just that one person, and then I realized that, like, I really was doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because that one person, do you know what I mean? That one person just said, like, and it lit me up like a freaking Christmas tree. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. This is what this feels like. And I love it so much. So I just,
and 100% for me, and what that is, Katie, I mean, that is a reflection from life. That is literally a reflection from life. And just so you know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who feel the same way. They don't come to you and tell you all the time, but as long as you are being the best version of yourself as often as possible, and you're willing to put that out there, people are going to feel that, and it's going to be reflected back to you. Yeah, and that's one of the ways. Mm-hmm. And then so
one thing powerful.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to that, or point out just as a tool that I've used in situations like that, is now create, and you have clearly, but I would also, just as for listeners out there, as kind of in the topic of the conversation, create gratitude for that. Right? When we genuinely create gratitude for the recognition or for the reflection of our intentions, life will give us more things to reflect. Like it'll do more of it. Right? It'll show us more people who are inspired or empowered or connected in the same space. I get people all the time who will just shoot me a message every once in a while. Hey man, like your book is really serving me. Like, oh my gosh. Like, and they're just random people I might have talked to in a year, or other podcasts that I've been on. All of a sudden I'll just get an email from a podcast host and it's like, hey, listen, that thing that you said in our conversation has really made a difference in my life over the past week. So thank you, and these types of things. When you do that and you step in, when you create gratitude, not only to the people who are sharing that information with you, but to life itself for putting you in a position where you can inspire others to be the best versions of themselves. I mean, really, that's what living on purpose is all about.
Yeah, no, it really is. I totally get it. It's just so powerful, and it makes you just feel like so alive, really. I mean, to me, that's what it is. It just makes you feel so, it's life. Like you said, it's just living. That's life right there. That's what you're supposed to feel.
And it's here and it's right now and it's a gift. And how can we create more of it? We create more of it by being grateful for it and sharing it with others and ideally empowering them to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I think it's really cool that you also, which is something that I think is different because I didn't know, as a life coach, you worked with musicians. And I think that's really awesome because I didn't know, honestly, that musicians really needed life coaches, as silly as that sounds.
Sure.
But I was, you know what I mean? Because I was like, oh, musicians are just really creative and they know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
well, and when you look at it,
awesome.
Yeah, musicians are in a place where they're constantly being judged, right? They're putting themselves out there in a space where they fear people not showing up to their shows. People fear people just writing bad comments on their social media posts. Saying that they're not good enough. It is a huge place to really be putting yourself out there. And if you don't have a supportive family, or if you don't have a supportive group of friends, as large as you'd like, or you have people who it has nothing to do with you, it has everything to do with them, but are haters or just, it's too difficult, you're not going to make it, this is it. I mean, it's okay. But, that's the type of stuff that can happen. And so to have a coach who's going to ask you questions that other people wouldn't think to ask you, and to hold you accountable and to help you look at life from a detached perspective. It's pretty huge. I mean, right now, so I worked with musicians really specifically for about 5 or 6 years. But then after becoming that internal coach for IPEC, I then, opened up I just realized I had a skill to really work with so many different types of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought it's just different. You know what I mean? I don't know any life coach that's worked specifically just with musicians. So I thought,
and that's and I still do work with musicians. I mean, I certainly have a couple clients who are musicians as well. I love it. In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is that musicians are entrepreneurs.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
They are creating
100%.
a product for the masses that they want to make an income from. And so to be there and to help them approach their life from an entrepreneurial standpoint can be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love music. Music definitely makes my heartbeat partly, I swear. Yeah. It's what keeps me in check, keeps me in tune.
No, I feel like I always have to have it on when I'm doing any type of work.
Yes.
Something going on in the background.
I'll even be editing my podcast and be like, should I throw some music in this? It might be good. I'm always thinking that.
A little bit of background.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's your favorite band? Or what's a favorite band?
Oh, geez, Pete. I honestly, if I'm going to go with rock and roll, so I am very chill with music. I'm down with jazz to classic rock, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
But if you were to ask me my favorite bands, it definitely would be Deftones. I like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana.
Yeah.
All those. Yeah. All the indie, all that stuff, the indie rockish 90s, all that fun stuff.
Totally. Love it.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah. that was my past life. I mean, I still mix it in with everything. Rock and roll is awesome. So it's going to be a part of me.
We're in a time now where there's so much music out there. There's so much access to music, more than ever before. So you can still learn now about all sorts of different bands and different types of sounds and from all over the world.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Because I do dance meditation too, and I like listening to African and Indian music and all that stuff. So really, that's what I mean. I'm just all over the place with it. So
love it. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I think we already I know you said that you put those in the order, you put the patient before joyful. So obviously I kind of mix those up. But I think, most of us know really what it means to be, at least I would hope, in some senses, to be patient.
Well, real quick, let's touch on it, because the challenge, I think what a lot of people see when someone says to them, be patient, they feel like that means that they just have to sit around and do nothing. Right. And they feel I don't want to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because then there are some people that are I just got to sit back and wait for things to happen. Yeah, right. I do. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yep.
And they're not necessarily ready to do that, which makes all the sense in the world. So it's it's not that at all. I mean, especially whatever you're doing, if you want to be a better business person, if you want to be a better musician, if you want to be a better human being in any capacity, and you're working towards that and you feel like you're not there yet, the impatient comes when you want it to be done today. And when you instead recognize, again, ask yourself, how would a patient person behave? If I wanted to create patience right now, what would I do? How does that feel? How does patience feel in my body and in my soul? It's not sitting on my hands, but it is accepting that I know this is going to happen exactly when it's supposed to. And my job in the meantime is to do what I can to move it forward. A super basic example that I think so many of us have certainly experienced is you think about sitting in traffic. Right. And if you're late for something and you feel like you're sitting there and you're just building up anger, you're just building up stress, and all you're doing is thinking about how you're late and you're late for this thing. And now it's like you have time in this car where you could be doing anything you want to. You could be creating a patient person. You could be creating a joyful person. You could listen to music. You could be thinking about someone who you love unconditionally in your life. You could do whatever you want. Be plotting whatever you're going to do for your vacation next year. I don't know. You can do anything you want. And instead, we sit there and we create this stress and this anxiety and this anger on being late for something. And listen, 9 times out of 10, if you look back at any time you felt stressed or overwhelmed for being late, whenever you got to where you were going, typically it didn't make a difference at all. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, everything was doing because you were late. A lot of the time, people who were going to meet were late as well, or it really didn't matter, or whatever. And so creating patience can be so powerful because, again, I know we kind of touched on this, but once that becomes a habit, you're not stressed by overwhelm. You're here now as often as possible. And it gives you more opportunity to create in the now. And the more you start to do that, the more you start to live on purpose. And then the more things start to flow into life because you're not putting up energy of stress or anger or lack, right? Well, a lot of the time, patience is a feeling, or impatience is a feeling of lack. Because I don't have what I want right now. I don't have enough. And when we change that into abundance and like, hey, I know it's coming and it's supposed to be here exactly when it's supposed to. My job is just to keep going and to move forward. Again, by being the light that I want to see in the world at the same time and grateful for this experience, like the more you start to just experience life in that way, and it becomes really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know now I see why you say to, be patient, because when you become more patient, and then you and you step back and you be present, then that allows you to be, joyful. I see how I get with that, how that kind of flows together like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to talk about, your business, your t-shirt company, the sales training business, all that stuff. I want you to talk about that and let everybody know, what you have to offer.
Awesome. Again, thank you for the opportunity. So I've always been a little bit of an ADD entrepreneur. So as a creator, I love creating businesses. It's funny because I mentioned earlier that I consider musicians entrepreneurs. Well, a lot of the time what people don't realize is that, and this is my opinion, I suppose, that entrepreneurship is a form of art as well, right? You're starting off with nothing. Yeah. You come up with an idea in your mind and you create what you want, what you think is going to be something that could serve the masses, and you'd like to get paid for it. But it is a blank slate. And so I love creating businesses. I've got several right now, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share them. So we talked about the book already. I'm also obviously a life coach, and so I work with people on a regular basis, once a week. Typically my clients, we connect with them once a week for an hour, and I coach you around really just becoming the best version of yourself. If you recognize that you have blocks, you have fears, you have limiting beliefs, things that are certainly valid and understandable for the life you've led, but you're looking for someone to help you get past them, feel free just to message me and we'll see if it's a good fit. I also, if you are a coach, if you are a fitness instructor, if you are what I would call a service-oriented solopreneur, if you've started your own business because you want to make a difference in the world and you want to change the lives of others, and all of a sudden you got certified and whatever it is, and you recognize that now you have to tell people how much you charge, and people ask you for how much your service costs, and you freak out because it's uncomfortable asking people for money or whatever. I have a separate company called Teach Me to Sell, and it's, teachmetosell.com. And that's exactly what we do. I have a partner. I'm the mindset piece of the training, and he is like the left brain, very specific sales training part of the company. And so we train people who just, have had no experience in sales. They didn't want to get into sales. They think it's a bad word. They think it's creepy, bothering people. They think of the old, creepy car salesman or whatever. But it doesn't have to be that way. And if you can focus on serving and how you're really bringing light into other people's lives and different ways to have that conversation, that's what we train you on. So anybody out there, if that fits you, please feel free to check out teachmetosell.com. And then my t-shirt company. Yeah. So we talked about music. I'm a huge fan of live music. I coached musicians for a while. I'm a huge fan of the band Fish. They're my favorite band.
Yeah.
And obviously there's bands like Grateful Dead, or just there's a lot of brands out there that will play a different concert every night, right? There could be a different set list. And so I have a t-shirt company called setlisttees.com. And what it is it's a piece of art featuring the date from your favorite concert on the front of the shirt. And on the back of the shirt, it has a set list from whatever they played that night. So it's kind of like a wearable ticket stub. Like you say, hey, this is where I met my wife at this concert, or me and my buddies all went there at college, or whatever. Or this is the first time I ever saw my favorite band. It's just a great way to kind of have something to not only commemorate it, but then, later when you're wearing it in public, it's an amazing conversation starter. So people will say, like, maybe they recognize, because it won't say the name of the band on the front. So it's more for people who are in the know. And so if you're standing behind somebody in line at a grocery store or at a concert or something like that, and you recognize all these song titles from your favorite artist, you're going to say, hey, what's this all about? And then on the front, they'll show a date and you're like, oh my gosh, I was at that concert too, or whatever. It's a great bit.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty huge.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you have all kinds of unique things that you do. I love it. And like I said, that's what all these people that I'm meeting and everybody just has all these cool little quirks and differences, and but that's just how it's supposed to be, and I love it.
Yeah.
So,
thank you for saying that. Life is an adventure, right? What can we do with it? We can do whatever we want. Who do you want to be in the end? A lot of the time when they talk about people who have regrets in life, it's never a regret that I tried something and I failed. It's always a regret that I didn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't try something that I didn't get outside my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I don't want to be saying. I don't want to say, oh, I wish I would have done that. I'm just doing it. Like, whether I get uncomfortable or not, I'm just like, nope, get up and do it, because we're going to have fun with this.
Step outside the comfort. And that's where the greatness lives, right? When we step outside our comfort zone. Otherwise, we just end up in the same place that we've always been.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always stepping outside of it every day. I'm trying something new. I just have to, because it keeps me inspired to inspire others, really.
And you're doing an amazing job. I mean, this podcast, as an example, is just a way that not only are you inspiring others, but once you're inspiring them and they're reflecting back to you, you're continuing to be inspired for yourself, for your life, for your experience. And so it's a powerful way to give and receive at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if I was there with you right now, I'd give you a high five.
Well, thank you. We'll do a, pretend high five.
Virtual.
Yeah, a virtual high five. Yeah, there we go. Virtual high five. All right. Well, is there what else could you, because I know we talked about this, like a last tip or trick or anything that you could give to the audience to kind of leave as a ending note?
Perfect. Yeah, and I touched on it already, but I'm really more than excited to say it again. It's working for you, right? So decide who you want to be. And that means make time to literally write it down. And that means so often I'll work with my clients and they may say, oh, I want to be successful, or I want to be rich, or I want to be happy. Like, okay, so cool. Like, what does that mean? Like, in all aspects of your life, what does that perfect life look like? And as creators, I'm here to tell you that you have the opportunity to create that life. And if you're patient and you don't expect it to happen in a day, but you're willing to put in the time and the effort and the intention and the practice of mindfulness, of patience, of presence, of joyfulness, and you're willing to do this every single day, you will get the life that you want. And sometimes by the time you get there, it's not about getting there. It's about the experience of getting there and intentionally living on purpose and creating aspects of your life that you love. And once you get there at that point, the fact that if you do it in that manner to where you love life anyway, it doesn't even matter when, it's getting there and learning to be that way. That is really the awesome part about the journey. So write it down and then read it out loud every day. Yeah. I know it may seem silly to some of you, but really, in the grand scheme of things, if reading it out loud every single day for 2 years straight got it there in 2 years, as opposed to not writing it down and not thinking about it and never having it happen, wouldn't it be worth it to spend, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes every morning and every night reading out loud who you want to be, reminding your subconscious? And then, so do that and then take action on it every day. And that doesn't mean you have to work, 16 hours every single day, 7 days a week. I mean, depending on what you want to succeed, depending on what you want to do, that might be something you want to look into. But in general, just by thinking, hey, I want to be this way in my family, I want to be this way at work, I want to have this career, I want to live in this place, and do something about that every day. And that can mean on Saturdays you spend extra time with your family if you want to be a great family member. That can be, you know what I mean? I'd say, listen, if you're spending a ton of time just getting wasted and going to the bars and binge watching, seasons after seasons of stuff on Netflix, you're probably not moving forward towards the career that you want.
Right. Exactly.
And everybody's on their own journey, and maybe that is what you want. But I'm just saying, if you want one thing, make sure that the behavior matches what you want. And then, as I touched on, also just be the light that you want to see in the world at the same time, and you can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you coming on here today. And
really, really my pleasure. And I hope that perhaps in the future, if you have another theme that I could serve you, you'll have me back.
Yeah. Really of course. I totally planned on it.
Love it.
All right. Well, I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
This episode is powered by Poddex.